Cognitive linguistics refers to the branch of linguistics that interprets language in terms of the concepts, sometimes universal, sometimes specific to a particular tongue, which underlie its forms. It is thus closely associated with semantics but is distinct from psycholinguistics, which draws upon empirical findings from cognitive psychology in order to explain the mental processes that underlie the acquisition, storage, production and understanding of speech and writing. Cognitive linguistics is characterized by adherence to three central positions. First, it denies that there is an autonomous linguistic faculty in the mind. Second, it understands grammar in terms of conceptualization. And third, it claims that knowledge of language arises out of language use. Finally, cognitive linguistics argues that language is both embodied and situated in a specific environment. This can be considered a moderate offshoot of the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis inasmuch as language and cognition mutually influence one another and are both embedded in the experiences and environments of its users. Three central positions. Cognitive linguists deny that the mind has any module for language acquisition that is unique and autonomous. This stands in contrast to the stance adopted in the field of generative grammar. Although cognitive linguists do not necessarily deny that part of the human linguistic ability is innate, they deny that it is separate from the rest of cognition. They thus reject a body of opinion in cognitive science suggesting that there is evidence for the modularity of language. Departing from the tradition of truth-conditional semantics, cognitive linguists view meaning in terms of conceptualization. Instead of viewing meaning in terms of models of the world, they view it in terms of mental spaces. They argue that knowledge of linguistic phenomena that is, phonemes, morphemes, and syntax is essentially conceptual in nature. However, they assert that the storage and retrieval of linguistic data is not significantly different from the storage and retrieval of other knowledge, and that use of language in understanding employs similar cognitive abilities to those used in other non-linguistic tasks. Embodied and situated. Areas of study. Cognitive linguistics is divided into three main areas of study: cognitive semantics, dealing mainly with lexical semantics, separating semantics into meaning construction and knowledge representation. Cognitive approaches to grammar, dealing mainly with syntax, morphology and other traditionally more grammar-oriented areas. Cognitive phonology, dealing with classification of various correspondences between morphemes and phonetic sequences. Aspects of cognition that are of interest to cognitive linguists include construction grammar and cognitive grammar, conceptual metaphor and conceptual blending, image schemas and force dynamics, conceptual organization, categorization, metonymy, frame semantics, and iconicity, construal and subjectivity, gesture and sign language, linguistic relativity, cultural linguistics. Related work that interfaces with many of the above themes, computational models of metaphor and language acquisition, dynamical models of language acquisition, conceptual semantics, pursued by generative linguist Ray Jackendorf, is related because of its active psychological realism and the incorporation of prototype structure and images. Cognitive linguistics, more than generative linguistics, seeks to mesh together these findings into a coherent whole. A further complication arises because the terminology of cognitive linguistics is not entirely stable, both because it is a relatively new field and because it interfaces with a number of other disciplines. Insights and developments from cognitive linguistics are becoming accepted ways of analyzing literary texts too. Cognitive poetics, as it has become known, has become an important part of modern stylistics. Controversy. There is significant peer review and debate within the field of linguistics regarding cognitive linguistics. Critics of cognitive linguistics have argued that most of the evidence from the cognitive view comes from the research in pragmatics and semantics, and research in metaphor and preposition choice. They suggest that cognitive linguists should provide cognitive reanalyses of topics and syntax and phonology that are understood in terms of autonomous knowledge. There is also controversy and debate within the field concerning the representation and status of idioms in grammar and the actual mental grammar of speakers. On one hand, it is asserted that idiom variation needs to be explained with regard to general and autonomous syntactic rules. Another view says such idioms do not constitute semantic units and can be processed compositionally. See also, embodied philosophy, linguistic anthropology. References. Notes Croft, William and D. Allen Cruse. Cognitive Linguistics. Cambridge, Cambridge University Press. Pages 1. General references Evans, Vivian and Melanie Green. Cognitive Linguistics, An Introduction. Edinburgh, Edinburgh University Press. Evans, Vivian. A Glossary of Cognitive Linguistics. Edinburgh, Edinburgh University Press. Gibbs Incasset ed. Cognitive Linguistics in the Redwoods, The Expansion of a New Paradigm in Linguistics Mouton de Guiter ISBN 9783110143584. Langlotz, Andreas 2006. Idiomatic Creativity, A Cognitive Linguistic Model of Idiom Representation and Idiom Variation in English. Amsterdam, John Benjamins. Further reading, Evans, Vivian and Melanie Green. Cognitive Linguistics, An Introduction. Edinburgh, Edinburgh University Press. Evans, Vivian. A Glossary of Cognitive Linguistics. Edinburgh, Edinburgh University Press. Evans, Vivian. Benjamin Bergen and Juig Zinken. The Cognitive Linguistics Reader. London, Equinox. Evans, Vivian, Benjamin K. Bergen and Jar Paragraph R.G. Zinken. The Cognitive Linguistics Enterprise, An Overview. In Vivian Evans, Benjamin K. Bergen and Jar Paragraph R.G. Zinken. The Cognitive Linguistics Reader. Equinox Publishing Company. Girard, D. and H. Cukins, eds. The Oxford Handbook of Cognitive Linguistics. New York, Oxford University Press. ISBN 978-0-19-514378-2. Girard, D., ed. Cognitive Linguistics, Basic Readings. Berlin/New York, Mouton de Guiter. Christiansen al., eds. Cognitive Linguistics, Current Applications and Future Perspectives. Berlin/New York, Mouton de Guiter. Rohrer, T. Embodiment and Experientialism in Cognitive Linguistics. In the Handbook of Cognitive Linguistics, Dirk Girards and Herbert Cukins, eds., Oxford University Press, forthcoming. Gilles Falconier has written a brief, manifesto-like introduction to cognitive linguistics, which compares it to mainstream, Chomsky-inspired linguistics. See Introduction to Methods and Generalizations in T. Janssen and G. Riedecker. Scope and Foundations of Cognitive Linguistics. The Hague, Mouton de Guiter. Cognitive Linguistics Research Series. Grady, Oakley, and Coulson. Blending and Metaphor. In Metaphor in Cognitive Linguistics, Steen and Gibbs. Philadelphia, John Benjamins. Schmidt, H. J. A. L. An Introduction to Cognitive Linguistics. New York, Longman. Silverman, Daniel. Usage-Based Phonology, in Bert Botmer, Nancy C. Kula, and Kuniya Nasukawa, eds., Continuum Companion to Phonology. Continuum. Falconier, G. Mappings in Thought and Language. Taylor, J. R. Cognitive Grammar. Oxford, Oxford University Press. Croft, W. and D. A. Cruse Cognitive Linguistics. Cambridge, Cambridge University Press. Tomasolo, M. Constructing a Language, A Usage-Based Theory of Language Acquisition. Harvard University Press. Falconier, Gillis and Mark Turner. The Way We Think. New York, Basic Books. Lukoff, George. Women, Fire, and Dangerous Things, What Categories Reveal About the Mind. University of Chicago Press. ISBN 0-226-46846. Lukoff, George and Mark Johnson. Metaphors We Live By. University of Chicago Press. The Cognitive Linguistics Bibliography, Wolf et al., Mouton de Guiter, Berlin. 2006. Conceptual Semantics and Cognitive Linguistics. Online version, Goossens, Louis. October 2009. Metaphtonomy, the interaction of metaphor and metonymy in expressions for linguistic action. Cognitive Linguistics. Volume 1, Issue 3, pages 323-342, ISSN 1613-3641, ISSN 0936-5907, DOI, 10.1515/COL. January 3, 1990.323, Cognitive Linguistics, An Introduction. Lee, D.A. Cognitive Linguistics, An Introduction, 1st ed. Melbourne, Oxford University Press, 2001. Corpus Approaches to Critical Metaphor Analysis, Charteris Black, J. Corpus Approaches to Critical Metaphor Analysis. Palgrave Macmillan. ISBN 1403932921, The Cognitive Psychological Reality of Image Schemas and Their Transformations. October 2009. Cognitive Linguistics. Volume 6, Issue 4, pages 347-378, ISSN 1613-3641, ISSN 0936-5907. External links: International Cognitive Linguistics Association, UK Cognitive Linguistics Association, Annotated Cognitive Linguistics Reading List. John Publique's Introduction to Cognitive Linguistics is an informal overview of the field, comparing it to traditional Chomskyan linguistics. Introduction to Cognitive Linguistics. The Gestalt Theory and Linguistics page deals with the relationship between Gestalt theory and cognitive linguistics. The Center for the Cognitive Science of Metaphor online is a collection of numerous formative articles in the fields of conceptual metaphor and conceptual integration.